Good day, doodlers. Welcome to Draw Cartoons. If you want to learn how to draw the fast and easy way, this is the place to be. Wonder Woman 1984 is releasing in June next year, and I've got to say, that golden eagle armor, it looks awesome. They've really done the comics justice with that sweet design, so I figured, hey, let's learn how to draw it. Throw a like on the video if you're hype as I am about another superhero movie, and as always you're going to need a pencil, paper, an eraser, and a Sharpie to go over your sketch with. Let's go! Let's get started. But first, if you want to learn to draw the fast and easy way, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. Let's begin! So begin by sketching in the shape of the head, and as you approach the bottom of the head you want to kind of narrow it down into a point for the chin like that best you can. So keep the top of the head as nice and round as you like, and then here you want to kind of get it a little bit pointy there. Once you've drawn that shape, cut it down the middle and then cut it down the middle horizontally. If at any point I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video or slow it down. I'm used to drawing at a certain speed, so I apologize if I go too quick for you, but you can always catch up. And once you've drawn the head, you want to draw this big line that goes all the way down. It's going to be the full length of her body, and it's going to end about here. That's where her feet are going to go. So I find it very useful to draw a line from left to right that basically acts as the floor that she's standing on. And so what we get now, if I just hide my original sketch a little bit more, we can see we've got all we've got is a head and just kind of the height of her body here, and then we can add all the details in. So I like to start with the big picture first, that is add all the kind of framework in, add all the kind of like big shapes in, and then add all the details. So I like to draw a line across here, right in through the middle of this big guideline here. It's pretty much right through the middle of it, and that's going to be her waistline. So with that in place, now I know where everything else is going to go. So I'm going to start with the neck here, and it's just going to be a very small, thin shape. I like to draw my cartoons with big, very exaggerated heads and faces, and keep the body quite neat and small. So coming from there, I'm going to draw this kind of Z or backwards Z shape here. We come out at an angle from the neck towards the shoulder, bring it in a bit, and then curve it out for the waist. And once you've done that, we can add a small V shape here that just kind of sits there underneath that waistline. And either side of that V, we're going to draw big legs that just kind of go thin at the bottom like this. Don't worry about drawing in the feet yet. We're just drawing in big shapes for those legs. We're going to add all those lovely details in later on, but for now I'm not going to worry too much about that. So for a couple of arm shapes here, I'm just going to draw a couple of lines that angle out here. They angle away from the waist. If you can see, I've drawn in like a very subtle elbow here and here as the arm kind of flicks out away from the body, and that's to kind of mimic the pose that Wonder Woman is pulling in the poster. So from here, I think it's useful to just kind of draw a box for the hands for now, and again we'll add some details to that later. And we're going to do the wings last, so they're definitely going to be the last thing because they're pretty optional. I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but the wings do kind of come off during the trailer, so that's going to be an optional step and I will do it last. So now that we've got the framework of our character in, we're going to add in all the details now, so I think it's good to start with the face. So let's divide this upper part of the head again in half, another kind of midpoint there. And now we get this kind of cross section here, and from there we can draw a bit of fringe that kind of curves up and waves down. Now Wonder Woman's hair is very wavy, so once you've drawn this first flick here coming out, we can draw the rest just kind of hanging over her face, and it just kind of waves down over her body, and it goes really quite far down. It goes about as far as her chest. Okay, and make sure when you're drawing her hair, you draw lots of little squiggles in it, make it very wavy and curvy looking. Definitely get Gal Gadot's kind of haircut going on there, and then bring it up and over the head and just kind of bring it to rest there. So that's going to be one side of her hair. Now her hair on this side comes in front of her body, and the hair on this side actually goes behind it. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to bring this out from the crown again, and this time it's going to have a bit more of a relaxed rounded shape. It's going to tuck here behind an ear. I like to draw a small curve for the ear just there, and then we're going to just draw some more waves on the side of her head here. Lots and lots of curves. Doesn't matter if they're perfect or not at this point, we are just sketching with a pencil, so a lot of these lines aren't permanent. We're going to go over them with a Sharpie later when we find the lines that we really like. So now we can draw in the rest of her face. Let's give her kind of a very mean, I mean business kind of look. It's very, very superhero-y kind of look. So we'll draw in a couple of eyebrows here. Notice that one's going over the hair, that's fine. But the inside of each eyebrow, this bit and this bit, are just touching that guideline there. So that's a pretty good way to measure where the eyes should be. And from there, I like to draw kind of a C shape and a backwards C shape. Just kind of swing it underneath that guideline and come back in towards the middle of the face there. Now I'm going to give her half-lidded eyes. I'm going to bring an eyelid right through the middle of those eyes from left to right, right to left like that. And then underneath, pretty much in the center of each eye, I'm going to draw a small semicircle to show her eyes looking right at the viewer. You don't have to do that if you don't want. You can draw the eyes pointing this way if you want, but I'm going to have mine pointing towards the viewer. Now I'm going to draw a small curve for the nose, that's it, just a small upwards curve. And now for the mouth, well, we could draw her smiling, I suppose. We could draw her kind of like looking very sure of herself like this. I'm going to go with what I did in my original sketch. I'm just going to kind of go for a very small mouth that curves downwards, and then either side of that mouth, as in the top and the bottom, I'm going to draw a curve over it, like that. One there, and a slightly bigger one at the bottom. So we get those very kind of thick lips that Gal Gadot has going on there. Okay, so you get those features in on the face, and the face is already done, or at least a sketch of it is. We'll go over it with a Sharpie later. But now for that armor. The armor is definitely more challenging than the face. I like to start by drawing out the shape of the chest here, so drawing 2 circles for the breastplate, and then below this we can have a small shape pointing down like this. It's kind of like an arrow, but it's got a blunt end. And then another one that kind of flows down like this. DC really do like their very, very fancy armor. And then one more just hanging underneath that midline there. Okay, and then for the top of, because this is all a bit blank here, isn't it? So the top of the chest armor, we're going to bring a line up that curves up and flicks up over a shoulder like this. Bring it down and then flick it up over that shoulder there. We're not actually going to see that, so you don't have to worry about how well you draw that part, because it's going to be behind the hair. If I just kind of erase here to show you, the hair's going to be in the way, so you don't have to worry about getting that bang on. So there's a few plates of armor here, just kind of flicking out here, 1, 2, and 3, and we can just tuck that into the armor there. Okay, so the breastplate is pretty much done, so we can move on to the arms now. Now what I like to do is draw either side of that original guideline so she isn't stuck with sticks for arms. I don't know how she can fight crime with sticks, so we definitely have to thicken them out. As you can see, as I've come to the elbow, I've brought it in towards that guideline a bit, and then brought it out for the forearm, and back in nice and thin for the wrist there. So that's a really good general tip for drawing a very strong looking arm, and Wonder Woman is very strong. She's probably well, the second most strong DC character I can think of off the top of my head, which is definitely up there. So you want to make her look very, very powerful, give those arms some bulk. Okay, you can definitely overdo it, so try and keep it kind of subtle and neat, because that's how she looks in all the comics and the movies. But yeah, you definitely want to make that look nice and strong there. Now for the hands. Now the hands are not easy, but I'm going to walk you through every step of the way. Feel free to pause the video or slow it down if you need. So, looking at this box here, okay, I think it's best if we draw a thumb. This is going to be the kind of outside of the thumb, and it doesn't escape the box, it just kind of has this shape here. So it starts at the wrist, and then it comes out towards that corner there, and then goes back to that point there. And once you've drawn that, we can draw in some knuckles. So we'll follow the shape of the wrist up towards the edge of the box, and when we get there, we'll draw it in towards the thumb and finish. Draw another one that comes over that finger and then goes in towards that thumb and then finishes, and one more that does the same, and it just kind of comes down here and closes off. Okay, so it gives you this impression of a closed fist, and let's just join that up by a small bump for the palm. Okay, now there is some armor on that, but we'll draw the armor in after this other hand. I think it's good practice to jump straight into drawing the other hand. Why not challenge yourself, eh? A faster way to learn. So the same shape again, coming away from the wrist towards that kind of corner of the box that we drew earlier, and then for the knuckles. So we'll come over this side of the hand. There we go. Close it off against the thumb. Another one that comes over, closes off. Another one that comes over a little bit, and then closes off towards the hand. Drawing a little palm in there, and there you go. It's a pretty complicated shape, but if you draw it carefully, draw it probably a little slower than I did, because like I said, I'm quite used to drawing quickly, you'll definitely get the hang of that in no time. So speaking of that armor, let's add it in. We want to draw a small separator here, more or less near the elbows, not quite on the elbows, just kind of resting on those forearms there. And then we can just kind of draw a line around the bottom of the thumb here to show where the armor separates into a thumb piece. And there's a small separator here on the wrists to help her actually bend her wrists. So moving on to the legs. Now the legs is the final part if you're not drawing the wings. So we'll draw those right now. Before we do, actually, let's draw in that lasso, the lasso of truth. So it's just a few loops just kind of hanging off the waist here. There we go. Simple as that. Just 3 curves, 4 if you really want to. Doesn't really matter. I think mine look better with 3, so I'm going to stick with that. And just kind of hanging off that waist there so she can easily grab it and throw it at a bad guy in an emergency. So I like to draw in the shape of the feet now. So notice how we've just got kind of like thin stumps for the ankles. That's fine. That's totally intended because we're going to add in the feet shapes right now. So as you reach the bottom of the leg, we're going to flick it out just a little bit like that, okay? So again, flick it out, and you'll notice the inner part of this is pretty much a straight line to the floor, and this one kind of angles out a little bit. Now in front of these are basically the heels of our characters, or her heels. We're going to draw the front of the foot just kind of coming off this. So to do that, we're going to draw a small kind of trapeze shape, trapezium rather, just kind of hanging on the front there. Okay, so very, very simple shape, but we'll smooth it out in a minute once we actually start drawing the armor of the leg. Okay, so for now we've just kind of, I brought that one a bit too far out, there we go. So we've got these very, very simple blocky feet shapes, and we'll fix that right away. So we're going to add in some armor here on the inside of this, the outside of this thigh rather, and again on this side. And then we're going to draw a small separator for the knee. One there. Give it a slight bend so it looks like it's wrapping around the leg rather than just kind of a straight line sitting on the leg. You don't really want to do that. And then there's a small gap here in the shin armor on both sides, following the shape of the leg. So just draw that in. Doesn't quite make it down to the feet. And then just up here, we're going to add another small circle, just kind of wrapping around the knee there. And we'll add a small kind of, very much similar to the torso piece that we drew up here. We've got this kind of angly down bit just kind of resting on the knee there. So that little gap there, we don't really need that anymore, but don't worry, you don't have to erase that at this point. Just don't draw over it when you draw your when you go over it with your Sharpie. So there's some kind of scaly shapes along the thighs. So to do that, we're just going to draw some lines diagonally across each thigh, and we're going to do that both ways. So just to show you what I mean, we end up with this kind of net shape like this, just and try and give it a little bit of a curve so it looks like it's wrapping around that thigh rather than, again, just kind of sitting on it and doing nothing. So now for the feet. Now we have just kind of got blocks for feet, so let's smooth them out a bit. I'm going to follow my guideline, but then I'm just going to kind of use my pencil to curve it around, curve it in towards the leg, maybe a little bit on these edges here too as well. There we go. But most of all, I want to try and keep those heels in place, resting on the floor there, and just kind of curve the feet into a more kind of human shape rather than a blocky kind of robot shape. Okay, so feel free to just kind of work that in until it's nice and smooth like that. And there you go, you've got some forward-facing feet. Nice kind of simple, easy, cartoony way to do those. Now, if you're not drawing the wings, your sketch is done, so you can grab your Sharpie and go over all the lines you want to keep. But if you're carrying on with the wings, we're going to do those real quick now. So I like to start more or less shoulder height, because that's where the wings would probably come from. Curve a line right up here over the height of the head. Bend it off there, and then bring it all the way down, and don't bring it any further than her feet, because otherwise it's going to look a bit funny. If it goes down here, that's not right, because that's where the floor would be. So you want to kind of bring it to there, and then bring that big shape back in towards her back. And you're probably wondering, well, why aren't we drawing the feathers yet? Well, something I find is very useful in drawing is to kind of tackle those really big major shapes first, and then add all the details to those shapes. And I think that's just a really good way of getting a character that has all the proportions right. It's more important to get the silhouette of your character right. That is, if they had no detail at all, it was just the outline of the character. It's more important to get the silhouette right than it is to get all the details right. That's not to say details aren't important, of course they are, but the silhouette is a little bit more important. So once you've got those big funny looking shapes either side of her, Now we can add those lovely details. So what I like to do here is draw in, basically follow the shape of the wing and draw in some spikes just kind of hanging down halfway through the wing like this. We are going to add more feathers to this shortly that reach the bottom of the wing, but for now we're just doing these first kind of spiky shapes going along here. So about halfway down the wing, just lots and lots of spikes just kind of hanging down from the top of that wing there. Okay, there we go. Just kind of therapeutic to do these nice zigzag shapes, if you ask me. Okay, don't worry if it looks a bit messy like mine, that's fine. We're just sketching at this point and you can neaten it out when you go over it with your Sharpie. So now for those other lines I promised, we're basically again just kind of following the shape all the way down here and turning the shape basically into a series of thin razor sharp feathers like this. This is a nice kind of cartoony simple way of drawing wings, particularly kind of eagle wings, bird wings, whatever you like. It's a very basic way to draw wings and it's very quick and it's very fun. And it works for this costume, or at least I certainly think so. Nearly done here. Lots of little spikes just kind of following the shape of the wings that we drew in, and there we go. I dare say our sketch is actually done at this point. So grab your Sharpie if you haven't already and carefully go over all the lines you want to keep. So you don't want to bother with any of these guidelines now. We are all done with all of these guidelines. This one along the waist, not going to need that anymore, for example. But yeah, by all means go over the lines you drew for the face and the wings and the armor and all that, and you'll have your very own awesome inked drawing of Wonder Woman ready to color in. And there she is, ready to whip the bad guys into shape and make her enemies wonder what just happened to them. Get it? Wonder Woman? By the way, I'd love to see all of your drawings over on the Draw Cartoons Discord. You can share any of your doodles or tips or video ideas whenever you want, and absolutely everyone, yeah, that means you too, everyone is welcome. Just scroll on down from here, hit that Discord link, and that's it. Welcome to the Discord Doodlers. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you drop me a like on the video and subscribe if you want to keep learning to draw the fast and easy way. Until next time.